You're listening to The Financial Plan, brought to you by Vim Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. The content on this show is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. For guidance on your specific situation, consult a qualified financial professional.
Welcome back to The Financial Plan. My name is Chirino. Every week, I answer your questions. Let's get right into it. Today's first question is from David. David is 52 years old from Tampa. I just saw a report saying that the average 401k balance for someone my age is over $600,000. I only have $140,000. I feel like I've failed at the game. Is it even possible to catch up at this point, or should I plan to work until I'm 80? All right, so I'm going to take you back to your favorite class in college. At least it was my favorite class in college, and that is statistics. They always tell you that numbers don't lie, but there is a way to kind of maneuver numbers to kind of skew the numbers a little bit. And this is a very, very important one. We have to learn the difference between average, which is the mean, and median, which is the middle number. And this is where I feel like a lot of these statistics get kind of lost. If you look at the average, the ultra wealthy is going to skew that average way up. So when we're talking about incomes, savings, stuff like that, the average or the mean is not the correct number to look at. That number is going to be skewed almost 100% of the time. The most important number to look at is the median, which is the middle number. If you don't remember how to calculate these numbers, let's give you a little 10th grade refresher here. The difference between median and mean, the median, you're going to look at a set of numbers. The number that falls right in the middle is the median, right? So that number is usually not skewed one way or another. The mean is the addition of all those numbers, then divided by the amount of numbers that's in there. So what happens is if you have one number on the tail, which it usually happens in income and stuff like that, one number on the tail that's way out there, it's going to affect that whole line of numbers. So that's why looking at median is the best way to go. So if you don't look at the average, but you look at the median, from 2026 data, Empower came out with their number, and while the average is roughly $630,000, the median is about $246,000. So that's probably the closer number that you should be worried about. You had mentioned that you have 140, so you are a little bit behind, but there's nothing wrong with that. This trying to keep up with the Joneses type of situation and comparing one person to another is something that we fall into a lot and something we really need to get away from. One of the main reasons why I love financial plans is that it is based on your information. Maybe you have a job where you don't want to retire. I talk to a lot of people that like what they do. Maybe you hate what you do and you want to retire, but every situation is different. And that's kind of where the financial plan comes into place, where we're going to look at your situation and everything like that. Retirement is very dependent on what you want to do and your situation. So it's important to make sure that we are solving for the right equation in that sense. And that's making sure that you have enough savings in retirement to meet your retirement goal. So there's nothing wrong with your situation here. Now, you are 52, so you are eligible for catch-up contributions, so you can make extra contributions to your 401k if you really want to start putting money there. After 50 years old, you can start doing catch-ups. So go ahead and if you can, go ahead and keep contributing and keep catching up. You can do an extra amount every year because you're over 50 years old. So I think the important part here is stop worrying about what the averages are. Stop worrying about what your next door neighbor is or what your front door neighbor is doing. Just worry about your situation. Speak to a financial advisor, get a financial plan done, and figure out what's right for you. All right. Second question here comes from Elena in San Diego. My partner and I are thinking about having our first kid, but I just read that it costs like $30,000 a year to keep a child alive in 2026. Between daycare and housing, it feels like kids are only for the rich now. How do you actually budget for a human being that doesn't pay rent? Yeah, well, you got to put them to work as early as possible. But all kidding aside, I do have two children. They're a little bit older now, 13 and 8. Shout out to Georgie and Justin if you're watching this or listening to this. So here's the thing that people don't tell you about kids. Kids are as expensive as you make them, right? We think about all this like stuff that you give your kids. And listen, I understand. I was raised in a much different situation than I'm raising my children in, and I try to give them as much as possible and, the things that I didn't have. But a lot of the time, there's a lot of fluff that's involved that's not necessary that I guess we do for ourselves to make ourselves feel better. So, yes, it is very expensive to have kids, and there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. You need to look at your personal situation where it's possible that it might be better for one of you to stay home with the baby than to put the baby in childcare or daycare and whatnot. If one of you is the breadwinner in the family and the other person doesn't make as much money, you do need to look at that situation and figure out if the math works, right? If you Elena, if your husband makes $50,000 a year and you're going to spend $40,000 a year in childcare, I don't think that $10,000 is worth the difference at least in my opinion. You do have to worry about, is the child being taken care of correctly and picking him up and dropping him off and all that stuff, where that situation doesn't really make sense. Now, if you both are high earners, then obviously that math doesn't make sense. But take a look at that situation and make sure that if it's possible that staying home is the right option in your situation. Another thing that you are looking at is you're looking at, talking before, an average of that, right? The first couple of years that the baby is born, they're not going to cost $30,000. I'm going to assume, I don't know where you got this number, but I'm going to assume that it includes college expenses in there, which again is going to move that average really, really high. So you can start saving for college. You can let the baby pay for college themselves. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't believe in just handing them everything and not giving them a little bit of responsibility on that side. You can help them pay for a car or whatever the case may be, but maybe they pay for their own college if that's what they want to do. Maybe they don't want to go to college. Maybe they want to go to trade school. The economy might look much, much different than it looks like right now. We are in this crazy AI revolution situation going on. So I don't know what the economy is going to look like. Maybe plumbers and electricians are the ones that make a ton of money, 20 years from now. So I don't know the answer to that. And that's nobody knows the answer to that. So I think taking a look at all those situations is important. A lot of these expenses can be, mitigated. There is a lot you can do, like hand-me-down clothes and stuff. We still have like my older son's clothes that my younger son is wearing. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you have family, most of the time, and this is where the child is as expensive as you make them. Most of the time, my older son wore something like once. We still have a ton of clothes that still has tags on them. So, just be careful. Don't overindulge in stuff that you don't really need. And I think you'll be okay. But it's important to take a look at your situation and try to make that math work. Next question comes from Tyler in Boise. I've been sitting on the sidelines for 3 years waiting for the housing market to crash so I can finally buy. But prices just keep creeping up and rates are still stubborn. Am I an idiot for waiting, or is the bubble finally going to burst in 2026? Okay, so this is something that happens a lot. This was a situation that my brother was in, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to wait because the market's going to come down. The market's going to come down." That was, I think, like 4 years ago, and about $200,000 ago in the situation of his home. I don't believe in waiting for a crash. That crash may never come. The thing that we do with 2008 that's going to happen again, maybe it will. It more than likely will, just because that's just how the market works. Eventually, we're going to have a crash and things will come down. But you have no idea when that's going to happen. It could be next year. It could be 20 years from now. If you continue to wait, it could keep going up forever, right? You could never see a crash in your lifetime, and maybe your kids or your grandkids see the crash. So on top of that, there's a massive supply shortage. So a crash would require a lot of foreclosures and selling that we're just not seeing right now, especially with a lot of people that had purchased homes with really low rates, with rates now double, sometimes triple what they got their homes for. It's very hard to sell to go into a more expensive home. I'll give you my example here. I bought my house, what was that, 10 years ago. I have a 4% rate, and my house has more than doubled in value, right? So even if I wanted to sell, it would be very difficult for me to do so, because I would have to buy a house that's even more expensive. And then with rates right now, my mortgage would double or triple. So it's going to be difficult for a market crash like what people are expecting. There is something you hear a lot: marry the house, date the rate. Date the rate is, I'm okay with that. Rates can come down, and you can refinance. There's no issues there. It's not a free lunch, right? You're going to be paying fees and stuff. You can do things like ARMs, right? Adjustable rate mortgages, which allows the rate to be variable those first couple of years. Just be careful with the terms there. You could, if you don't know what you're doing, there could be some variables there that aren't favorable. But in this type of rate environment, I think an ARM is probably the best route to take, where you can get some adjustability. Or you want to do a 30-year mortgage and refinance after the fact, you could do that. But my main point is, if you find a home you love, I wouldn't wait. It very, very rarely works. And I think it's important for you to buy your home and move on. Another thing is, I am not one of these guys that says, like, you have to buy a house. You don't have to buy a house. If you want to rent, there's nothing wrong with that. Financially, the difference between owning a home and letting it grow versus investing the money is very small. Sometimes even better on the investing side, and you have the flexibility of moving around if you want to. So, not the end of the world. If you really do want to buy a house, you have a house that in mind, go ahead and buy it. Stop waiting. Next question comes from Jordan in Charlotte. I make $160,000 a year, but at the end of the month, I have like $200 left in my checking account. I feel like a fraud. I'm 35. I have a good job, and I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. Where is the money going? So this is something very interesting, something that I've talked about recently. The companies, actually the economy as a whole, about 10 years ago, they figured out, and they're very, very smart at this. We live in a society or an economy where we pay everything as a monthly subscription. And I think this is probably what's happening here. You need to do what I call a financial audit. You need to look at all your expenses. Go back 3 months. You don't have to do some crazy thing. Go back 3 months and really look at everything that you've been spending. I can almost guarantee you there are thousands and thousands of dollars in there that you really should not be spending. If this is something that bothers you, that you don't have savings or that you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's nothing there's nothing wrong with that if you're enjoying your life, right? If you're traveling a lot and all that, there's nothing wrong with spending a couple of years where you're enjoying it. That again, I'm not one of these you have to save every penny guy. But if this is something that bothers you, two things. Do the financial audit. I guarantee you're probably spending a lot of money on like Uber Eats or DoorDash and stuff like that. The amount of money you are spending extra above and beyond for these things is astronomical. I mean, every single order, if you do an order on Uber Eats, you're paying like 20 to 30% more for that item. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do it 4 or 5 times a month or even more, I know people that do it every day. I am flabbergasted at how much money they're spending on fees, and not even the fees, just the item themselves is more expensive. So take a look at that. That is probably your number one thing. Secondly is make sure that you're saving enough, right? So the way to do that easily is make sure the savings is automated. By that, I mean, make sure you make a decent living. I assume that you do have a 401k at work. Make sure that you are putting in that 401k at least what they match, nothing more than that. There's no reason for that. And make sure that you're maxing out either a Roth IRA or whatever the case, whatever the situation is that you can do based on your tax situation. Obviously, I don't know your tax situation. So make sure that you're maxing that out. Make sure you're maxing out an HSA if you can, or an FSA, and the rest, make sure that you're saving. The savings is the important part. You don't mention if you're saving or not. So, it could be that you have $200 left in your checking account after you save $1,000 a month, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, automate it and do the audit. And I guarantee you're going to find a lot of money being spent there that really shouldn't be. Next question comes from Maria in Phoenix. I'm 48. I have a kid starting college in 2 years and a mother who just moved into assisted living. I feel like I'm being squeezed from both sides. Do I pause my retirement savings to help them or let them figure it out? Okay, so in finance, we think about this as the oxygen mask rule, right? So you're on an airplane, and what do they tell you if something were to happen if the oxygen mask comes down? You got to put yours on first and then the person that you're with, right? And the reason why they're doing that is if something happens to you, then the other person is probably, messed up too. So it's important that you take care of yourself first. You can get a loan for college. You cannot get a loan for retirement, right? So this is a part where you have to really take a look at the situation and understand what's going on. Obviously, your mother is in assisted living, so it's time to start taking a look at her assets and seeing what can be used there to help with this assisted living. Take a look at Social Security that's coming in, and with the savings, you should be able to make ends meet. Assuming that there's no savings, then you will have to come up with a difference from Social Security. The college situation, like I had mentioned before, you don't need to, pay for every penny of college. It's okay for your son. He said kid, I don't know. It's okay for your son or daughter to pay for their own college. They'll be okay. A lot of us did it. You're listening to somebody who has done it. I didn't get it paid by my parents. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it. It's okay. They're going to be okay. So it's okay for them to get a loan or them and go work and pay for college themselves. They have to also understand that life happens. This is a normal life situation. There's nothing wrong with getting student loans. I don't think there's any issues there. You still have 2 years, so maybe he can work really hard, or they can work really hard and get some scholarships and whatnot. And if not, you're going to have to go and get some loans for him. You can help him get the loans, and he'll just have to pay for college on his own. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. Again, some of us have done it, and we're okay. Next question comes from Greg. He is 61 from Seattle. I'm burnt out. I want to retire this year, but I won't get Social Security for a few years, and Medicare doesn't kick in until 65. Can I survive the gap, or am I dreaming? All right, Greg. So this question is, I'm sorry to be rude, but kind of useless. I have no information here to answer this question. Uh, this is the prototypical example of why you should do financial planning. And I say this over and over and over again. You're probably bored of hearing it already, but this is what a financial plan is for. I don't know that answer. I have no idea. You have to sit down with a professional, whether it be me or somebody that, local to you in Seattle, that can look at your situation, look at your assets, more importantly, look at your spending and figure out if you can survive that gap year. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. Maybe you've got $10 million in the bank and you definitely can. Or maybe you've got nothing and you definitely can't. But that is very important. I will make a note here about Social Security. Social Security, for the most part, and again, this isn't a blanket recommendation, but for the most part, it is usually better to wait until you're 70 if you can. If we look at the Social Security tables, if you wait till you're 70, more than likely your break-even point is around 80 to 81. So what do I mean there? Between taking it at 67 and taking it at 70, if you wait till 70, by the time you turn 80 or 81, you will break even on that wait. So what does that mean? Right after 81, every year that you live longer, you're going to be getting way more out of Social Security. When I do my financial plans, most of the time I plan between 90 and 92 for end of plan. And for most people, waiting till 70, you're taking out sometimes $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 more in Social Security waiting till 70 than starting it at 67. So again, this is something that we'd look at in the financial plan. I would highly, highly recommend go speak to a professional. If you want to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to run the financial plan for you, and we can see if you can retire. Last question here. I'm Samantha from San Francisco. I feel like I'm missing out. My friends are all making 50% returns on these new AI infrastructure startups, and I'm sitting here with my boring S&P 500 index fund making 8 to 10%. Am I being too conservative? No. So this is one of my favorite things about what I do. I love going to networking events and some random person telling me about some random stock that they bought for 3 pennies and now it's worth 6 pennies, and they're geniuses that they saw something that nobody else saw. The chances of that happening, a stock that'll go up 40%, in one day or a week, more than likely will not stay that way. Again, the chances are slim. That means that it can happen, but the chances are slim. I think what you're doing is the right approach. Yes, it is the boring approach. This is the rabbit and not the rabbit and the hare, the tortoise and the hare situation where sure, they might be getting 40%. Another thing that they don't mention, this is my favorite part, like the guy that goes to the casino and tells you he won $10,000 at the casino, but doesn't mention that he lost $40,000 winning that $10,000. This is the same situation here. I've realized a lot of these people only tell you about the winners. They don't tell you about all the times they've lost the money. So I think you're doing the right thing. If you really do feel like you're missing out or you do want to try your hand at picking stocks, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do this all the time with my clients. We piece out a sliver of their portfolio, let's say 5-10% of their portfolio, where I manage 90% of their assets, and I do it let's say the correct way, the boring way. And then that 10% or that 5%, we put it in your account at Robinhood or wherever, and you just play with that money. That is your play money. That is your casino money. And I think that might be something that'll be useful to you. If you have some ideas that you want to try, maybe you're the next Warren Buffett. Who knows, right? I think it's important to try it out. I think it also keeps you in the know of what's going on in the market. It also might sway you away from doing this. This has happened a lot with clients that think, oh no, I can do this, we piece away that 5 or 10%. The market turns on them. They don't pay attention for 1 or 2 days, and that stock is down 60% or 80%. And then they're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. This is too difficult. This is a lot harder than I thought. And then they stop worrying about stuff like that. So that might happen to you, or you might love it, and it turns into a nice little side thing for you. And there's nothing wrong with it. So I think boring is a very underused word in what we do and what I do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Boring is what gets you closer to the finish line. I tell my clients all the time, I am not here to make you rich. You make yourself rich with your job or your business or whatever the case may be. My job is to keep you rich and to make you richer. But I will not make you rich. I'm not going to go and buy the next penny stock that's going to soar 10,000%. That's not what I do. That's not what most financial advisors do. And that's it for this week's episode. If anything hit close to home and you'd like to reach out and have a conversation, all my contact info is in the description below. Please let me know if I can help. Thank you.